What's good, everybody? This is Casey Supreme with Internet Money. Today I'm bringing you guys the tutorial on mixing that you've all been asking for. Everybody's been in the comments asking for a mixing tutorial, stuff like that, so I'm going to do that for you guys today. Except it's going to be on basic mixing principles, so I'm not going into any advanced stuff or crazy stuff like that. I'm just going to be doing the basic principles and building blocks of mixing that everybody should know. Because people overcomplicate and they overthink mixing when it's really not that complicated. People add way too much, they do too much, and then they don't end up with a good mix. If you stick to these basic principles and you learn those really well, you'll come out with a good mix, and then everything else is just kind of excess. I'm going to play a beat I've made. It's already released on my site, kcsupreme.com, all that kind of stuff. But I kind of went back and I stripped everything off it. I took everything off the mixer, inserts and everything like that. So this is back to the raw sounds, unmixed, untouched, all that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to kind of play the beat so you know what it sounds like. And then I'm going to break it down from there. So yeah, you get the gist of how the beat sounds and all that kind of stuff. The first thing we're going to do is use EQ on every single instrument. Now, usually I do this step while I'm making the beat. For example, when I add the piano, I usually add it to the mixer and do basic stuff like EQing right then and there as I go. But since I stripped everything off this to show you how to mix it, I'm just going to start with EQ. So I'm going to go through each instrument, EQ out the frequencies that are unneeded and the muddy frequencies that are going to clash with other instruments. And then after that, after everything's EQ'd, then we're going to do leveling, stuff like that. So I'm going to start with this piano right here. Going to solo it. Oh, and by the way, there's nothing on my master channel either. It's just all blank. So I'm going to open up parametric EQ 2, make it bigger. So with EQing, the concept of it is that there's bass in this piano that's going to clash with the bass in our song, such as the 808 and stuff like that, and the kick. So you want to kind of remove those frequencies to give the 808 room to breathe. And the basic rule of thumb is to sweep it in like this. So the first thing I did was I took this and I scrolled all the way down so I get a more precise cut, because otherwise it's like this and it doesn't, it's not as precise with the frequencies it's cutting. So usually for taking out low end, I like to move it all the way down so it looks like this, more precision. And then basically the rule of thumb is you're going to play the sound, you're going to slowly sweep this down until you hear a change in how the sound sounds, basically. So you can hear the bass being removed, and you want to move it down until you start to hear it kind of, sound off, sound wrong, sound like I took out too much. And then once you're there, you're going to slowly bring it back until that effect that you hear going on disappears. And that's kind of how you figure out which frequencies to cut for this instrument. So I'm going to do it right now with this piano. So you can kind of hear right there what I'm talking about, how it sounds different. So then I'm just going to pull it back until it sounds right. Okay, so that sounds good right there. Cut out most of the low end while I still preserve some of the bass and the low mids and stuff like that. And then with the high end, I do the same thing. Actually, I don't make it as precise. I just kind of cut out a little bit. But I use the same method where I sweep it down until I hear it sound different, and then I pull it back. So I'm gonna leave it right there so it clears up some room for some of the higher elements, because this particular instrument is kind of in the mid range. So there's that. So now I'm gonna go to the next instrument, which is the pad. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Start with the low end, same process. Okay, let's move on to the next melodic element. Let's move on to this flute right here. And then this ARP sound that's in the verse. For the people that have FL11, I'll keep it small so you can kind of see how it looks on that. Okay, so that's all the melodic elements. So now let's do the 808. So now with the 808, obviously we don't want to take out the bass, but I still move this all the way down and just kind of cut out the very, very low stuff. And so this is the resonant frequency right here. This is like the main frequency. And because I'm playing different notes with the 808, it kind of moves around. So you want to be mindful when you are cutting out the very, very low end that a note doesn't go lower than what you've cut, and then it'll sound bad. So you just kind of watch for the lowest note. So as you can see, none of them fall below where I've cut, so it's pretty safe cut. And then with the 808, we kind of want to cut out some of the highs. Same process as any other instrument. So this is a really good example. So listen how it changes when I pull it further down. You want to listen for that change in the sound. So you can hear when I pull it back, it doesn't change it. So that's a pretty safe cut. You can get rid of all this information while keeping the 808 how you want it to be. Okay, so now we got the 808 EQ'd. Now let's start some of the drum elements. Start with this hi-hat. So now with an instrument like a hi-hat, most of the information's down here in the treble. So it's really no issue cutting out all this. Same thing, just here for the change in the sound and pull it back. Let's do the clap. So there's some bass in the clap. We don't really need that. But the mid area of the clap is pretty important. We don't want to cut too much of that. And then see if we can cut out any of the highs. Usually on a clap you don't want to, but let's just see. So we can cut a little bit out. And then usually on the clap you might want to boost some of these high frequencies. Nothing crazy. And then find the resonant frequency, which is this right here. And we might want to boost that a little because that's kind of the thump, I guess, of the clap. It's like the meat of the clap, I guess. Okay, let's do the snare. Same concept as the clap. Nothing really too complicated about any of that. You know, it's the simple stuff. You're just cutting out the mud. Same idea with the kick. We're just going to pull it in so we hear the kick lose, you know, some of that thumpiness and bassiness that we like. And we're going to pull it back. Okay, and then with a kick I usually like to boost the main frequency once again. Not by a lot, just a little tiny bump. And then we're going to cut some of the highs out. Let's see, with this kick, it has some high-end information which helps it cut through the mix. So we don't want to pull out too much. You can already hear it kind of changing right here. Something like that's good. So now we got everything mixed, or not mixed, sorry, EQ'd out. That's the first step of mixing. So the next step is to level everything. So a good trick is to turn your whole mix on your master to mono. Now it may make things sound like shit temporarily, but it kind of helps you figure out where each thing needs to sit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control, Shift, left click, and drag across to select all these channels, and I'm going to turn them all the way down. So now I'm going to start right here in the verse, and I'm just gonna bring in one thing at a time, kind of listening where it should sit. So let's start with the hook. Actually, start with this piano. So I'm just gonna raise the volume slowly until it gets about where I want it to be. And when you mix, you want to mix low and then bring up the volume on the master. So you just want to mix it low so nothing's clipping. And you can kind of hear, because it's in mono, that it sounds more muffled. So here's normal and stereo. And then when I turn it to mono, it's going to sound much more muffled. But that's okay, because we're just listening for volume. And usually what I like to do once everything's turned all the way down, I like to turn up the volume of my speakers, like turn up my audio interface pretty loud so I can really hear the precision of what I'm doing. So it sounds just as loud to me as the final mix, but as you raise everything up, you end up keeping it quieter because you're listening to it so loud. Not like blaring loud, just like turn up the volume so it sounds a normal volume of loudness, if that makes sense. Now let's go to the next element, the pad, I believe. Now let's do the flute. Because the flute's kind of our lead in the hook, it wants to be a little bit louder than these elements. And then I'm going to mix the arp that happens in the verse. Okay, now we can go to elements like our 808. Okay, now let's take it out of mono, and listen to how it sounds. Okay, 808 might go up a little bit. Put it back in mono, and now we're gonna do the drum elements. Then we're going to do the kick. I usually like to make it hit around 6 dB. Just take it out of mono and listen. Okay, so now we got everything leveled, we got everything EQ'd, but for this video, that's covered all the basic concepts of mixing, and that's all I have for you guys today. So go back, study the basics, learn these techniques, get your mix right at this level before you add any extra crap on top of it. So yeah, that's all I got for you guys. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.